Hey everybody, so today we're going to change the Scaffold-ETH 2 project to see how we can deploy and interact with contracts on Pushchain. So first, let's run this command here to install the project locally. So let me open the terminal and run this command. Let's give a name to our project. I'm going to call this Pushchain demo. And for this, we're going to be using Hardhat. Now let's just wait for the dependencies to be installed. Everything worked just fine. So now let's cd into our repo and let's open our text editor. Perfect. So before we deploy our contract to Pushchain, let's first test everything locally. And for that, let's run this yarn chain command to run a local chain. Everything was working just fine. So with the Scaffold-ETH project, it comes with a sample contract. And for now, let's just deploy this sample contract on our local chain, just to double check if everything is working fine. And for that, we can just run yarn deploy command to compile and deploy our contract. Everything seems to be working fine. So let's just run yarn start to run our interface. Let's go to localhost 3000 that I have here, and let's just refresh. Everything seems to be working fine. Let's go here to the debug contracts page, and let's interact with our contract. As we can see, the total counter is 0. So let's first call this write function here, this set greeting, and let's set a random string here. Let's call it hello world. Let's set a random payable value. I'll set as two-way. And before clicking on send, we need some test funds. So we are on the local chain that's called Hardhat, and the connected wallet as of now has 0 ETH. So I can click on here to get some testnet funds. Okay, so I have 1 ETH. Now we can click here on send. MetaMask will pop up. Let's click on confirm. And things went through. So we can see here that this was updated to 1. We have the transaction receipt here. And if I just come here, copy and paste my address, and now I have the result. Before it was 0, now we have 1. Cool. So this is perfect. So we have just deployed this sample contract here to our local chain. So this is still not Pushchain, but we can see that everything was set and it's working as expected. The first change that we're going to be doing is let's deploy a new contract. I just want to show you guys how you would, create a new contract and update it. So for this demo, we're going to be creating a new contract that I'll call it governance.sol. And I'm just going to paste this contract here. And the goal of this video is not to go over the contract, but just how to configure Scaffold-ETH to, deploy contracts on Pushchain, interact with contracts on Pushchain, and even, as we can see here, create new contracts and test your logic. So I have pasted this contract here called governance.sol. The contract name is called simple governance, and it's a pretty straightforward contract. You just keep tracks of the proposals that were created and which proposal the person has voted on to, and who has voted yes, who has voted no. And here we have a function to create the proposal, function to vote, to fetch a proposal, and to check if a particular person has voted. So we have created actually this new governance contract. So now let's deploy this. But before deploying, we have to change our deployment script. So for now, as we saw here, the contract name is simple governance. So let's rewrite this to simple governance. This and this. Nope, we don't need this. We need to change this as well because the arguments is what we pass in the constructor. And as we saw here, we have no constructor in our contract. So let's delete this. And lastly, yes, this. After deploying, we're going to call this proposal count function, which is this. Just to display, it should be 0. It will be 0 because the contract has just been deployed, and the idea is just to call a function after the contract has been deployed to show that we indeed have 0 proposals created. So this looks fine. So let's run the command to deploy this new contract. So as the same as before, we're gonna run yarn deploy, but in this case, we're gonna be deploying our new contract. So we have successfully deployed the new contract. As we can see, the UI is already loading, and yeah, as we can see, the UI has changed, and now we have the proposal functions as we saw in the contract. So for testing, we're still going to be testing against our local chain. So this is still not Pushchain, but let's just double check if the function, the contract has been deployed successfully. So let's create a proposal. I'm going to call this test local chain proposal. For the duration, I'm going to set it to 300 seconds. We have enough funds. Let's click on send. MetaMask will come here. Let's confirm. As we can see, the proposal account was just updated to 1. And let's fetch for the proposal with ID 1. And we saw that the proposal was successfully created. If I come here and fetch the number 2, we're going to get an error because there's no proposal with ID number 2. Let's go back to number 1. As we can see, the proposal is just here. Perfect. So we have just created a new contract. We have changed our deployment script to deploy this new contract. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to take this contract and we're going to deploy it on Pushchain. And as you're going to see, it's actually pretty straightforward. We just need to change 2 files. So for the first one is we need to change the hardhat.config.ts file. And we need to change this to add this information here is just to add the Pushchain RPC URL and the chain ID. And where do you get this information? Both of this information. If you head to the Pushchain documentation and you go here under setup chain configuration, you see here all the information about our testnet. Here are the RPC URLs, the chain ID, which is 42101. The blockchain explorer URL. I have here more information about the addresses of the contracts. But for this Scaffold-ETH demo, all we need is just this information. So we have successfully added here push donuts. And the last file we need to change, if we go to scaffold.config.ts, we need to add Pushchain information here. And that's what we're going to do. So let me just add it here. We're going to be adding Pushchain information here. And this is from VMs, as you can see here. So I just set the Pushchain ID, which is 42101, as we saw before, the name, the native currency, and I have here the RPC URLs and the blockchain explorer here. So we have added this. Now the last thing we have to do is just add this push donut chain on here. And that's all we have to do. We just need to change the hardhat config to add Pushchain information here, RPC URL and the chain ID. Deploy a private key is just the same as all of the others. We're going to be talking about the private key right after we deploy the contracts, but just want to point that it's just the same as all the others. And if we go back to scaffold.config.ts, all we did is just add this information here and add it here under the target networks. So now let's try to deploy the contract. I said try because we're gonna get an error, but I'm gonna show you and explain how to get around this. We do yarn deploy -- network, and we do, how did I call it? Push donut. Let's run this command, and we're gonna get an issue because we don't have, we haven't configured the wallets that we will be deploying this contract, because now we're deploying Pushchain testnet. We need some Pushchain tokens for this. And there are 2 ways. I can configure the private key to deploy from that particular private key, or I can just run this yarn generate command that it's going to generate a random wallet. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to send some chain test tokens to this random wallet generated. So from that random wallet, we can deploy our contract. So if I run yarn generate command, it's going to prompt me to add a random password, which I'm typing here. And as you can see, generated a wallet. So I can just copy this wallet, can come here to MetaMask. I'm already connected to Pushchain. And let's send some funds to this address here. 0.1 should be enough. Let's click on confirm. Okay, we have just sent 0.1 push tokens. And now we should have enough tokens to deploy our contract to Pushchain. Now I have to type the same password as we created before. Now we're deploying the contract, and apparently everything went fine. The UI is refreshing. Okay, as we can see, we still have the proposal count as 1 because here on the top right corner, we're connected to Hardhat. So we need to switch our networks to Pushchain Donut testnet, as you can see here on the top right. Let's click on here. And as you can see, it has fetched my correct balance. And the proposal count went back to 0 because we're connected to a new chain. We're no longer connected to Hardhat like we were before. Let's switch back to Pushchain testnet. Let's do the same. Let's create a proposal. I'm going to call this Pushchain proposal. Let's add the duration of 100 seconds. Let's click on send. MetaMask will pop. We'll open here. Now we're connected to Pushchain. Let's click on confirm. And the transaction will be submitted to Pushchain. Let's refresh the page. As you can see here, the proposal count was updated to 1. If I come here and call it read, we see here that we were fetching information from Pushchain Donut testnet. I can always come here and switch network back to Hardhat, and if I fetch this again, we're fetching from the local chain. And I can come here, switch back to Pushchain and read it again, and we can see we're fetching from Pushchain now. So that's the idea. Just a recap, what we did is we have created a new contract called governance.sol. We have deployed that new contract and updated the deployment scripts to deploy this new contract on our local chain. And we have configured, on the second half of this tutorial, we have configured Scaffold-ETH to deploy and interact with contracts on Pushchain. So that was the goal of this video. If you need some tests, you need some testnet tokens, you can come here to setup. We have some faucets. Let's give you the faucet here. If you go to the Pushchain documentation, tooling, faucet, we have some faucet here, faucet.push.org, where you can request push tokens to interact and deploy your contracts. So that's the video. Thank you so much.